Hello witches, it's Dragabella. I wanted to make a video talking about some of the ways that Christmas has evolved over the years and how some of the traditions that we have, like Christmas trees and stuff like that, have developed. I know that there's been a lot of misinformation about Christmas trees and whether or not they came from paganism. I know some Christians really are strongly opposed to certain things revolving around Christmas because of the misconceptions regarding where they came from, who started them, and stuff like that. So I want to start off by saying that I think that the whole season of Christmas and the celebration of Christmas time is now actually become a blend of a lot of different cultures and a lot of different celebrations that have been kind of intermingled into one. Now, the celebration of Yule is completely different than what the celebration of Christmas is. Christmas, for traditional, Christian version of Christmas, is supposed to be celebrating the birth of Christ. And it does make sense when you think about it, if the light of the world is going to be born into the world on what is known as the darkest time of the year. Okay, so, and then that brings me to what paganism is also celebrating, is the return of the sun, only the S-U-N instead of the S-O-N. The sun being returning, in the spring. Now, the Yule holiday focuses around the winter solstice. Now, on the day of the winter solstice, it varies each year. It's usually around December 21st, 22nd. That's the day when the light is the least amount during the day. So it's the shortest day of the year, the darkest day of the year, the darkest night of the year. And so what the pagans are celebrating, or even not even just the pagans, but the people in general of ancient life, they were celebrating the return of spring, when the sun was there, when people didn't need to be all locked up in their homes, and when the food would be plentiful again. Now it's interesting nowadays. There's kind of like an umbrella of paganism, and what each different culture celebrated has kind of just been lumped into one thing. The Wheel of the Year wasn't something that was always the way it is now. Traditionally, people who celebrate the Wheel of the Year, there's like the 8 holidays. But I found it really interesting when I was reading that, because some witches believe that Samhain is how they celebrate what's the old year to the new year. And personally, that's how I do my Wheel of the Year. I kind of look at Halloween as the ending and then the beginning of the next year, as far as in the craft. But the Celts were the ones who they celebrated the end of the agricultural year on Samhain and the beginning of the next agricultural year. The Anglo-Saxons, however, they celebrated the end of the solar year and the beginning of the new solar year on Yule. So really, the celebration of the Yule holiday came from the Anglo-Saxons. And also, it's believed that the Christians celebrate at this time of the year because it also was the time of the year when the sun was born, the S-O-N sun. So all of these things kind of happened at the same time, and so there's lots of people who are celebrating different things at the same time. Also, the Jewish tradition celebrates Hanukkah. So all different people celebrating the season, but for a different reason. So, and then there's also a bunch of other traditions that happen that I think they all kind of sound like the same story, but with slightly different twists. For example, the huntsman, we hear about the great hunt and the battle between the Holly King and the Oak King. Now, there is some traditions in witchcraft that celebrate this. They do like a whole dress up thing where, they act out this whole thing happening. And so it's believed that half of the year is the king is the Oak King, and the other half of the year is the Holly King. And so they duke it out, and one wins half the year and the other one wins the other half of the year. Now, so the fact that the songs, when the song is singing, let the earth receive her king. And so even though that's a Christian song and it's sung in Christian churches, it kind of also applies when pagans sing it for something kind of different. And then the other tradition is that the rebirth of the god, in the god-goddess archetype, the god goes, he dies at the end of the year, around the the end of the fruitful season, and then he goes into the womb, which symbolizes the earth, and he goes in and he's being nourished by her womb, and then he's reborn in the spring. So there's a lot of traditions that have a lot of different twists on what they're celebrating. Let's see, I took a bunch of notes on stuff. I've been doing a lot of reading into the different things of the holidays. In the Germanic countries, that's where supposedly we started the tradition of bringing in the fir tree, and decorating it. They used to decorate it with all kinds of things, some sugary like candies that they made, fruits, nuts, berries. The first record of a decorated fir tree is from, I don't know if I'm saying this right, of Riga, Latvia in 1510. They adorned this tree with paper flowers, and then they performed a dance where they danced a circle around the tree, and then they burnt it. So they didn't even have it for very long. They decorated it, danced around it, and burned it. It was symbolizing the end of the previous year and the beginning of the new one. It didn't become, decorating a tree and bringing it in did not become popular in America until 1841. And the change of mind at that point was because Queen Victoria had had a tree brought in and decorated for her at Windsor Castle. So if the Queen did it, then everybody thought it would be okay. But, this whole tradition was very much frowned upon by the Catholic Church. They were very angry about a lot of stuff. Anything that they thought they hadn't invented or they didn't deem as being okay for how we could celebrate or how we could worship, then it wasn't. They would just call it pagan and try to wipe it out. So a lot of our misconceptions and a lot of the biases people have against certain things that people do is usually something that came out of, fear-mongering and that whole Reformation time when the Catholic Church was trying to establish its authority, and they wanted to get rid of anything that they felt was a threat. So after 1841, people started to decorating trees in their homes. It says that during the American Revolution, there was a group of people fighting in the American Revolution called the Hessians. Now, the Hessian soldiers were seen doing this. They brought trees in, and these Hessian soldiers came from a place in Germany, an area known as Hesse. Or Hesse, let's see. But this Hesse place in Germany was well known as the place where the witches would gather. They would go up to this peak in the Harz Mountains known as the Brocken. And so that was kind of associated as being, those type of people were kind of seen as being witches or pagans. So, up until the 1841, they didn't really want to do this tradition that they saw as being witchcraft. The earliest known decorated evergreen in America was in 1747. It was in the Moravian village in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Sorry if I'm brutalizing these names of these towns. And so there's a lot of types of decorations that have different origins as well. And a lot of them have origins that have a magical past. I love decorating with pine cones. I love collecting them. Like when I go to different places, I have like really, really big ones from Florida, and different ones, different sizes, different shapes. So pine cones as well as acorns are both symbols of fertility. They symbolize the cycle of death and rebirth cycles. In Germanic countries, pine cones also symbolized the fairies, particularly in the wild pine forests. The first molded glass ornament was actually made out of a pine cone, or made to look like a pine cone, in the village of Lashka. Even the simplest ornaments have these kind of magical histories. Bells are known to, every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings, from that movie. Bells ringing, those nice little tinkling bells are said to invite the good spirits. The tinkling little small bells are known to be liked by the fairies as well. Not the big, the reason that they used to put the big bells on cows was to keep away the fairies. So if you want fairies, you want the little tinkling bells. Those spheric glass blown balls that we see so much on trees were a type of magic. The spheric balls were covered with like a reflective lacquer that was a type of mirror magic. It would reflect back any evil, any negative spirits that were trying to like come in. Another thing about the balls was some people believed that it could trap in the light of the sun and increase its energy. Icicles is another one. Icicles are a water representation, a representation of the rain dripping down and bringing water, and as well as a phallic symbol, fertility. So the candy cane has a couple ideas behind it of where it came from. I heard a Christian version saying that it was in the shape of the shepherd's staff. And then it was white, but the red stripes symbolize the blood stripes that Christ got. Another one says that it represents the spring maypole and the ribbons going around it. I don't know if I believe that one. Then there's a cult that worshipped some god called Attis. I don't know that god. I'm not familiar with it. This cult would wrap a white woolen shroud around the tree and then sprinkle the blood of the priests of Attis onto it. And it was believed that wherever the blood of Attis fell, violets would spring up. So that's all I have for you for fun little facts of the traditions of Christmas. There's many other ones, the mistletoe, the wreath, lots of them. Many traditions from different cultures. Krampus, oh, that's a good one. I should do a video on that. That's a very scary, for those of you who haven't seen that movie. It's very terrifying. But some of the really like Icelandic, Nordic tales can be very scary. They had like demon things that would come to get the bad kids, and supposedly that's where the reindeer came from, for Santa. that there was the good Saint Nicholas who would come to bring presents for the good kids, but with him would be the cloven-hooved, devilly looking demons, basically, to punish the bad kids. So let me know if you guys have some traditions that I may not have heard of, or fun little Christmas facts. But lots of celebrating at this time of the year. It's a time to reflect on the year that you have had and what things you liked about it and what things you want to change, and making goals for the next year. Okay, guys, blessed be. Bye.